District 7, and we have 3 candidates for District 7. Incumbent council member Leonard Firestone announced he wasn't going to seek re-election. So these are all 3 challengers for that position. And it's because of the live stream, and I'll say as we repeat that we're going in sort of alphabetical order. And so when you have a name that starts with B, you get to go first.
I'm used to that.
Well, my name starts with C. I'm Chris Cobbler, so I can relate to that too. So the candidates for District 7 are Caleb Backholm? Backholm? Did I say that right? Macy Hill and Jason Ellis. So we'll go first with Caleb. You can get to start with opening statements. You have a minute, and then we'll go into questions after each of you get a minute for opening statements.
Sure. Okay, yeah. I am Caleb Backholm, and it's spelled like the capital of Sweden, Stockholm. You can kind of remember it that way. It's a good old Swedish name. And I grew up in a somewhat Swedish town, actually on the coast of Washington, in a house of a preacher's son with two siblings, and went to college in Northwestern in Minnesota. Met my wife there, and she's here. We have 3 kids, and after the kids got a little bit older, we moved down here to Fort Worth and really enjoyed the area and came here intentionally because of what the area is like. And frankly, probably the biggest reason that I'm running for office here is because growing up in that area, I've seen what bad politics, particularly bad city politics, will do to a city. Seeing what's happened to the crime rate, the homeless rate, what businesses have to try to go through to operate. And now we're here, and I want to make sure that what has happened up there doesn't happen down here in the city. And so that's why I'm running for Fort Worth City Council.
All right, thank you. Candidate Jason Ellis?
My name is Jason Ellis. I was born and raised right here in Texas. I joined the military when I was 18, deployed to Iraq on the sniper team. After I got out of the military, I went back to Iraq, worked for a private security company. The last position I held there was I was the director of logistics. I was over 400 personnel over in Iraq. When I came back to Texas, I started a plumbing company, and we built that up. In 3 short years, we were grossing over $1 million in sales. I eventually sold that company, and I stayed on as a partner where I run operations today. I share all these things with you because my whole life has been geared towards service and serving people. The reason I'm running for city council is I want to actually work on the things that affect our everyday lives. The things that we affect Northwest Fort Worth, for instance, is our infrastructure. But I'm willing to get my hands dirty, roll up my sleeves. I'm a big believer in leading from the front and leading by example.
Thank you. Candidate Macy Hill?
Hi, my name is Macy Hill. I've been married to my husband, James, for 20 years. We have 2 sons, one's 14, one's 16. We're raising them with the same strong work ethic that we were raised with. I grew up in Port Neches, Texas, small town girl. Started working at 12 years old in my grandfather's grocery store, stocking shelves. We were never allowed to move up to cashier. You stayed stocking shelves, so you understood what the hard work was, and did that all through high school. I came to Fort Worth, went to TCU, have my undergraduate degree from TCU, have a master's of liberal art, and a master's of business administration from TCU. Currently, I'm the president of Tailwind Philanthropic Advisors. I work with family foundations to invest their money in nonprofits in North Texas. Everything from early childhood to homelessness to public policy. So I understand intimately the needs of the community and what we need to do to fill the gaps. So this was really a natural transition for me from moving into city council candidate role. I understand the issues, and I'm passionate about being an advocate for our neighbors and community.
All right, thank you. We'll move right into the first question. As it was said earlier, some of these questions came through neighborhood associations, and this first one does as well. It focuses on historic Lake Worth, which continues to be a popular recreational destination. And Leslie Pinkard of North Lake Worth Neighborhood Association and Evelyn Mulder of East Lake Worth Neighborhood Association are both asking, they want to know what protections you'd put in place to protect green space and parks around Lake Worth. So your thoughts on how you can protect the space around Lake Worth.
Sure. This is not a question that's come up a lot for me on the campaign so far, but I would say that what it does tie into is the quality of life in the neighborhood. Like, we moved to this neighborhood intentionally because of the style of neighborhood it is and the feel that it has. Even though it's close to downtown, a big city of Fort Worth, it's also a bit outside, and it feels more remote. And that is an important thing, and I can see why they asked the question, because they don't want to lose what they moved here for, or maybe they even grew up in it. Either way, they don't want to lose what they're here for. And I think it's important to have some of that. As we grow and as the city develops and the areas around the city develop, we do want to have areas that remind us that it's a little bit different than some of the really big cities out there, and to keep those protected, and so they don't just develop, but rather you have green spaces, you have areas where it brings you back to nature. And I think that's an important thing. I'd want to see that continue the quality of life that we already have here in Fort Worth.
All right, Candidate Ellis, just briefly restate the question. What protections would you put in place to preserve green space and parks around Lake Worth?
So I love the outdoors. I love hiking. I have children. We actually utilize in District 7, we actually have one of the largest nature centers in District 7 as well. We love it. I think we should protect it, right? So part of a city is as long as we can create a place that is a clean, safe city, people want to move here. We've done a great job. We're one of the largest cities. And we got to keep it that way. But part of keeping a clean and safe city is also having a place why families want to move there. That means school districts. That means green spaces, right? So absolutely, I'm going to do everything I can to protect that.
Great. Thank you. Candidate Hill?
Well, Lake Worth it's a historical asset for the city of Fort Worth. The city has continued to grow around the lake, and I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we protect it. I've visited with several members of neighborhood associations in that area, and they're very concerned about the growth that we have moving into Fort Worth and losing the green space and losing the value that we have around Lake Worth.
All right. Thank you. We'll go right to the next question, another neighborhood association question. This focuses on the southwest portion of District 7, which is experiencing massive growth. And the question centers on the concern about traffic mobility and roadway safety. Gary Hogan of Chapel Creek Neighborhood Association wants to know how you propose to help Fort Worth be more proactive to growth. How do we get ahead of that growth curve?
I guess I would address that by talking about the streets. As far as being proactive, that's what I hear most often is the streets that we are using were built a long time ago when it was a lot of longhorn cattle, or a lot more longhorn cattle and a lot fewer houses. And now there's still some cattle, but there's a lot more houses around, which means there's a lot more cars around too. And so being able to address it where people are able to drive to where they need to be and walk to where they need to be too. I'm concerned about sidewalks. That's an issue in a couple of areas where it's just dangerous to get around because of so much traffic, higher speed, no sidewalks. But to be able to do that in advance when developments are coming in, and you have to prioritize it. I think that's one of the 2 or 3 big priorities in the city is really having streets that can be driven, that are wide enough to handle the traffic that we have, and that can be done so safely. And so that's a great question, and I think it's important that we focus on that and really just make it one of the top priorities of the city.
All right. Candidate Ellis, restate the question briefly. How do you propose to help Fort Worth be more proactive to growth?
Yeah, so we slow down development. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. But the problem is if we don't slow down development, our infrastructure is so far behind right now, it's going to get to a point where we won't even have the opportunity to say we want more development, right? So focus on the infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, I mean more than just roads, right? We mean we're power grid. We mean the water. I'm a plumber, right? Like I'm a plumbing company. I own a plumbing company. We're talking about sewer treatment plants. There's a lot that goes into the infrastructure, and it's taking a hinder. Our infrastructure is taking a huge hit. So if we have to, we need to slow down infrastructure to catch up, or I'm sorry, slow down the development to catch up on our infrastructure. I think that's huge important. You know, one of the things in Northwest is our response time with police, fire, and EMS. It's not necessarily their fault. There's so much traffic in Northwest Fort Worth because of all the new development. It's not necessarily the police's fault that they can't get there on time or their response times are high. It's because there's so much traffic on the road. So I think we focus on the infrastructure even if we have to slow down the development.
All right. Same question, Candidate Hill?
Well, first and foremost, I think the city's responsibility is to take care of the buildings that we have, the streets that we have, and make sure they're up and running and doing the right thing for our community, making sure that people can get to and from their place of work, that police and fire can get where they need to get appropriately and efficiently. It's a complicated question because people are coming. We can't stop the growth. We can't stop.
We can slow it down, though.
We can't stop people coming in from California, New York, Florida. The people love us here, and that's something we're going to have to deal with. But we have to do it in a smart fashion. We have to work with everybody. We have to work with developers. We have to work with the city. We have to work with the infrastructure issues. There's so many so many departments in development. We're talking not just about streets, but we're talking about water and sewer and making sure all of that's planned, but we have to be smart about that as we move forward.
All right, thank you. The next question, and I just want to sort of restate the rules of the forum. This is not one in which we have rebuttals, a rebuttal period, although if we have a runoff, we'll set up our debate.
I feel like you're picking on me. Is that kind of room? I'm just kidding. Chris, you're doing a great job, Chris.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is also from a neighborhood association, Margaret Johnson of the River District Alliance. She asked a question that focuses on how city council developers often promise specific things to the zoning commission and city council to get their proposal approved, such as involving neighbors in the design process. The question is, what strategies will you use to ensure developers follow through with those promises? How do you make sure the promises that are made in the approval process actually get carried through when the project goes to completion?
Following up, you find out what the plan was in advance, and you monitor as they go. I guess that's pretty much the only way to do that is to make sure that happens. I guess you could put in big fines at the end if it doesn't. That sometimes can be effective, but I would definitely prefer to not do that if you can help it, unless it's egregious. But yeah, just following up with them, making sure they're following the plans that they had laid out. There's an agreement in building, particularly if we want to avoid really high-density construction, which is something that I do want to do, particularly in the north part of the city. I feel like the high-density construction is a detriment to the area, at least if there's very much of it. And so making sure that we have the construction that is going to be more of the family-style neighborhood that the area is already built like, and to continue that feel going on is an important thing. And that's what I would try to make sure happens, and make sure that those who are saying, yeah, this is how we're going to build it, make sure they actually stick to it, and it comes out the way that everyone was expecting.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And I'll also restate the rules of the forum here, that we're all here to hear the candidates, not to share our opinions.
I don't give woke answers, though,
All right, but-
just so you know.
all right.
All right.
All right. Next, to restate the question for candidate Ellis, what strategies would you use to ensure developers follow through with their promises that they make in getting approval in the design process and the early process for the zoning commission?
So it's accountability. I own a plumbing company. I can't go from A to B until the city approves it. It's that simple, right? So when I go do an inspection or I pull a permit on a property or anything else, or if I'm going to do some work, I have to get approval before I can go to the next step. It's just that easy. Accountability from the city. So if we want to worry about the development and if they're going to follow through on anything that they promise us, it's accountability, making sure that we're coming in, we're checking it and saying, okay, we're checking off, now we can go to the next step, and we're going to allow you to do the next thing. It's that easy. Accountability.
Thank you. Same question, candidate Hill?
My answer is going to be very similar to Mr. Ellis, is accountability, but the city does have processes to go through. And we do need to hold these developers and hold them to the plans that they put in front of the city. And I think it's important that we make sure that the neighborhoods are working and talking to these people as we have developers that are coming in, have conversations, make sure everybody's on the same page and understand. And I think a lot of developers are very respectful of the neighborhoods. I think there's a couple one-offs where things have gone awry or the expectation level was a little bit different. But I think it's part of, we were talking about the open comment portion at City Council. That's that time where you can come in and talk about the developments coming in, the main issues. Talk to your City Council people. Have open conversations with them. That's why you want to have people that are responsible, that are looking for business-minded decisions and solutions. So it's not just these grand ideas that are put into play and that really affect people and have unintended, thank you, consequences. So again, it does go back to accountability and conversation with the neighborhood and City Council.
Thank you. We're going to go to the final question before we go to closing statements, and that is that Fort Worth, as we know, is often called the home of cowboys and culture, and District 7 has a variety of institutions that sort of reflect that. The question then is, how do you plan to use your vote on the council to support the arts community in Fort Worth and in District 7?
Yeah. Fort Worth, the feel of the city as the gateway of the West, or the Cowtown, and how different it is from Dallas. Just so you guys know, people from outside this area think Dallas and Fort Worth are the same place. And then you show up here and it's like Dallas and Fort Worth are about as far apart as they could be without being far apart. And so yes, Fort Worth has a unique culture to it that's different from most of the big cities in the country, and different than even Dallas, just 30 miles to the east. And I think it's important to preserve that and keep that going, because that a lot of people come here and stay here because they like the culture of it. And so I would encourage that just by telling people this is how it is. This is how the culture is, and the feel of the gateway to the west here with Cowtown and all of that, and really keep that going. I would encourage people to be active in that as much as they possibly can and really enjoy what Fort Worth brings to all the residents here. I think it's a great thing.
And candidate Ellis, just to restate the question, how do you plan to use your vote on the council to support the arts community in Fort Worth and District 7?
So I love Fort Worth. I love this city. I live here for a reason. This is where I raise my family. I go to work and I play and everything else. I love the culture. Anybody who comes to Fort Worth experiences the culture. They know the culture. I don't want to spend any money on the culture. You can come to Fort Worth and know that. I want cheaper property tax. Does anybody else out here want cheaper property tax? It's ridiculous. You know, like, so let's talk about responsible budget. You want to talk about culture? Let's talk about responsible budget and spending the money in the right places. I believe in our culture. It's here. That's great. I'm definitely all about that, but I want to save money. I don't want to spend any money on something like that.
All right. Candidate Hill, same question?
I think what we're really talking about is economic development. So the arts, our cultural system, that's what brings tourists here. Did you know that Cowtown Marathon brings $10.5 million for 2 weekends? People come to visit the art. They come here to see the culture. Now we have the Drover. We have this whole experience in the stockyards. We even know that people come, District 7 has the Kimball. It has the Cowgirl Museum, which is amazing. We have the stock show and rodeo. All of that, to me, falls under a great public-private partnership. We have philanthropic dollars that help fund it. It's our job to help maintain the streets, the infrastructure to drive tourism, and that drives economic development, and that drives, really the quality of life that we have in Fort Worth.
All right, we'll go right to a minute for closing statements. Go ahead, candidate.
All right. Well, I think what sets me apart in this race is the independent voice and the history I have of working for goals that are important in a city. The first campaign I ever worked on was in 1992, and I've been on the school board 2 different times since then. I've been elected as a delegate to the State Republican Convention. I've worked a lot of times with a lot of people to try to bring about the change and preserve things that really matter to me politically. And I believe that's what I bring here, is the ability to stand strong and be an independent voice when the pressure comes, because it does, whether it's from establishment situations or whether it's from politics that I strongly disagree with and they push back. I've got the history showing that I'm able to stand strong and represent the area and represent the 7th District very well, keeping our property taxes down. I've got a specific plan on my website that talks about that, how we could actually lower the taxes. And so I believe you'll find a really good representative in me if you want somebody that can stand strong and be independent, and I hope you vote for me. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And candidate Ellis, a minute for closing.
I'm going to go a little off script here, okay? I'm going to say some things that normally a politician wouldn't say. And these guys that are sitting up here, you guys have a very difficult choice to make. These are really 3 good candidates up here. I'm not going to lie. We got Macy, we got Caleb. You guys are great. Y'all have a very, very tough choice to make. And I admire you guys for running, because it's not easy to be up here. It's not easy to run a race, right? It's very difficult. But at the end of the day, it sounds like a lot of our values align. A lot of our things align, it sounds like. There's no secret. We're all Republicans up here. We all have R's behind our name, right? So it's going to be a very tough choice for everyone out there. But at the end of the day, like I said, I want to make sure I work for the people. I want to work on the things that actually affect our everyday lives. Forget about I don't want this for the title. I don't care about ribbon cuttings or rubbing elbows or anything else. I just want the best for Fort Worth, and I want the best for District 7. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. And candidate Hill, final comments?
First of all, thank you all for coming out on a Wednesday evening. I know it's hard. I'm really focused on the quality of life in Fort Worth. I think it's important that public safety is my #1 priority. I'm endorsed by the Fort Worth Firefighters Association, the Fort Worth Police Association. I want to make sure they have the right resources they need to protect us, to be efficient with their time, effective with the resources they have. Infrastructure, development, those are all important issues, property tax. I think that we really need to focus on, the theme is quality of life and who's going to represent the communities and the neighbors. I want to be an advocate. I want to be a fighter at City Hall. I want to be able to listen and understand what's happening. I live in a different neighborhood than a lot of my other District 7 neighbors. And so what happens in your neighborhood is extremely different than what happens in mine. And so being able to have open conversation, being accessible, and being an advocate for you, that's my goal.
All right. Thank you. Let's give all the candidates a round of applause. And we're going to take a short break and come back with District 11. And I can't say it enough for myself and for the Fort Worth Report and our partners, KERA and Steer Fort Worth. We really salute all the candidates who choose to give themselves to public service. Thank you so much.